We've got a question this week from Trish Callan. She has had really bad quad pain the last few times I've done big elevations. Just done a 50-mile race with 8,600 feet. Good job. Going down the stairs was agony for several days afterwards, and it was a week before I could run without pain. I would say, before we even start that, Trish, that's perfectly normal for an ultra recovery. I think you've done jolly well. Yeah. Is there anything I can do in training or during the race to prevent it, or anything to help them recover quicker? With a bit of a backstory, this wasn't my first ultra, and while I live in a flat area, I do train on the hills whenever I can. I recently bought some Lecky poles, thanks Patreon Sports Shoes discount. Our pleasure. Ooh. Thinking they might take the pressure off my quads a bit. They definitely help during the race, but my quads are still just as bad. I'm slightly dreading how sore I'm going to be after my next race, my second Lakeland 50, and also can't imagine ever being able to do a multi-day event. Trish, we've just been discussing this. We're going to have a good cop, bad cop sort of method, because there's lots of different ways we could discuss it. So, and if you're listening and you go, yeah, my quads are always blown, take on board, listen, something, hopefully you can draw some information out from Trish's pain. Let's start with the bad cop. Russell, what are you going to say?
Hi, Trish. I'm going to say all of this with
love.
Good humor and love in my heart. And I care about you, Trish. So I'm sorry if somebody has to tell you, you have to get out into the hills, Trish. Like, you have to do your training in the hills. And there's lots of reasons why I'm saying this. I was born in London. My first fell race, remember it really clearly. My quads, I felt like they were trashed for 2 weeks after. And I just felt like I was never going to get the hang of fell racing. That exposure to downhill running, I just don't find you can replicate that in the gym. And people try, and there are things you can do. But if you think about it just in terms of 180 beats a minute, 180 steps a minute, you're running downhill, that's 1,000 steps in a mile. You're not going to do 1,000 reps in the gym. You need to get out on the hill and you need to run down hills. And if you really care about your race, that's the only way through it. I would say every 2 weeks is optimal, but even every month you can still get benefits.
And there's a recent study that says you actually only need to blow your quads like once a season. As we all know, like when the snow goes here and I do my first 1,000-meter downhill, the next day I can hardly sit on the toilet. But then that never happens again. And I was like, oh yeah, that is actually right. That actually once you've blown your quads properly, they do harden themselves off.
Yeah, that stress plus rest equals growth. That equation is real. But I coach a lot of runners who live in towns, have your same problems, and then can't get out into the mountains. And it's the ones that never make those recce trips that then they just suffer with those DOMS because there is just no way around it in the gym. You can do all the box jumps you want. You can do all the squat thrusts, all of it, but it's not the same as running down the hill and that specific stress that you get. So unfortunately, quite boring, but that would be the thing that I would suggest, is getting to a nice runnable gradient that you can run down in your training, and just getting that exposure once every 2 weeks, once every 4 weeks. And that's going to be the thing. And then taking your protein straight after you've done that to allow that body repair to happen as soon as possible.
I think actually if you are committed to doing something like Lakeland 50, or especially there's like UTS races, I've got a bit mean now if I'm coaching clients towards those races. I'm like, you have to spend some time. There is no point training. I know there are times where it's not going to work, but sometime if you possibly can on the specific terrain at as much close as that race, that sort of like 6 to 4 weeks out when you're really in the specificity of your training, if you can be on the terrain, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not exactly the same terrain. I know that driving out to Snowdonia for a lot of people is not easy, but getting to as specific as you can make it terrain and spending some time on that terrain. I would argue that actually you can do a lot with strength training, balancing out your strength work so that your legs and your core especially is strong, because if your core is strong, it allows you to run better downhill, because it allows the lower limbs to release and relax, because your brain is saying, I am supported, and so I am going to relax, rather than tensing and breaking downhill, is relaxing and running downhill. Trish, we need you.
Yeah. Hi, Trish. Great name.
Trish.
It's Trish. Hi.
Are you related?
I just think all Trishes are awesome generally. So Trish must be an awesome individual. So with what Russell said, I totally agree. You've got to I'm a flatlander. I live in the flats of the New Forest. It's really poor hills down here. There aren't any. But so in my block, I have dedicated weekends where I go to the hills and I basically do that, try and get into the hills for a weekend at least once in a block, leading up to a race. That might be twice or even every weekend leading up to it, depending on. So you've definitely got to get that specificity 100%. Again, I don't know if you're coached or if you coach yourself, but if you coach yourself, try and get it in your plan. So, at least one in a block, try and get 1 to 2 in, maybe even more building up to training. I appreciate it's hard. I don't know if you've got family life, work, whatever. It's really difficult, but you've definitely got to make that commitment to it. Things you can do to help with that in terms of training, so strength training, particularly when you're so squatting with weight is helpful. So when you're squatting with weight, if you're going fast up, so you're exploding out, but then very slowly squatting down. I don't know why I'm doing it. I hope you're watching the YouTube versions because I'm moving
and I'm doing the sick emoji face.
Yeah. So you want to be that can help with replicate some of the muscles that the work that the quads are going to do with descent training. So fast up, nice, slow down with your squats. The other thing with recovery, I'm a massive fan of walking. And by the way, like if you're maxing out on a race, everything's going to hurt afterwards. You're going to feel like death after a race if you're going into it.
If you don't have the handle on your car above your seat to get in and out, you're not going to be able to get in and out. That's the aim for after an ultra.
It really is normal to feel like bad. I mean, sometimes the races I've done, I've honestly felt like I will never run again.
You don't know how people live, and you watch everyone going around Sainsbury's, and you're like,
I know, yeah.
People are amazing. They can walk so fast and bend to pick things up. I'm never done that again.
I think you've got to learn to love the suffering. I absolutely love the suffering. I mean, feeling like death afterwards, I'm like, yes, that's what it's all about. My kids, not so much. But
no
yeah,
sympathy.
So the biggest tip I would say in terms of recovery is walking. So just do as much easy walking to get you to start getting the muscles moving and help. That will help with recovery and flushing out all the toxins and all the water retention.
And just because you finish, don't keep fueling like you are racing. Yeah. So keep the electrolyte, drinking and eating, like even when you often as well. A couple of things you're going to do. You're going to feel really hungry and then not hungry at all. So respond to that. Feel really hungry. You might have a bit of a binge and then be like, I can't eat anymore. But really listen to your hunger cues. But don't listen to your thirst. Just keep drinking the electrolytes as much as you can, because I think I often feel better the more I just keep that fluid going in. That's going to help the rehydration of the tissues and everything. And you might, or probably we'll all agree, the night sweats can often be pretty horrendous post an ultra too. Yeah.
Get the weekends in your blocks. They're super important, and increase those as you get closer to the race. Make sure you're doing with your strength training that you're doing the weighted squats and you're going fast up, slow down, and that will help with it. And you can also do that with steps in terms of reverse steps down as well. So it's slowing down those movements. And recovery, you've got to walk, sleep, eat.
Protein in. And though we've said like you can't replicate in the gym this downhill action,
no, you can't.
You can.
I'm with Russell on that.
We can't. Yeah. You can make your body as strong as possible. So don't think when the message we're not giving here is you don't need to go to the gym. You need to put your body into the mountains being strong and robust, and that will help. It will help quads. It will all help. It will all help the conditioning, the core, even the upper body, even the arms. If you say you're using poles, you can do work in the gym. Hammer curls, they're your best friends. If you're going to be poling up and down Lakeland, you're going to be doing this action for, it can be, some of those climbs can be like up to an hour. So work that as well in the gym. So
Eddie, you might need to describe that action if they're not on YouTube.
I was doing I always think of it as like the Lego guys in Ninjago.
Yes.
they move, but I do a lot of that, and I prescribe a lot of that, of hammer curls with weights. One, it makes you look really cool in the gym because it makes it look like you've got big biceps.
You look really cool.
Yeah, thanks. But it's also if you are going to be carrying poles, and it's hard to do the action because as you're poling, you're obviously putting your body weight through the pole to then push up the hill. And so if you've got weight in your hand in the gym, you're almost doing that same sort of, it's an all over.
Yeah. And using your poles for descending as well. Is this
she
a bit
mentioned that,
topic?
didn't she? She says she's got some poles. And if you watched any of the World Trail Championships on YouTube and you watched the Europeans using their poles on descending, if you're from a skiing background or anything like that, it's obviously much easier because you're kind of used to the pole plant. But again, if you get out for some recce's and practice like how you like, some people don't like to use them because they find they can't like bend into the climb and be quick enough. And there is a slight danger aspect if you're not used to using them and then you drag them behind you and catch them on something. But again, it's all practice. This is all practice.
Poles have saved my knees. I've got terrible knees that really hate descents, and poles have saved my knees on a number of races. Just being able to continue and do okay. So I'm a massive fan of poles, and I think when you use them efficiently and effectively, they can make a big difference to your race and your ability to continue when you're in a lot of pain.
And they're good for pointing stuff, like
hitting other runners.
Yeah, getting rid of cows. There's never a bad moment.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to get rid of a cow with a pole.
That's what I do. Go on, at you go, Fluffy. Cowbell, Daisy.
We must have different cows.
Alpine cows are quite different to the English and Welsh cows. Like the Alpine cows, they're not going anywhere. Rebecca, what's your tips for terrible the quad pig, quad gnar?
Well, I think obviously everyone has said everything that really needs to be said. It's strength and conditioning. I can't emphasize that enough, really. And particularly, as you say, when you're using poles, we've really got to think of running not just as a lower body activity, but it's a whole body activity, including your brain, isn't it? So I think training all of those areas is really important, and certainly squatting with weight is really important. So not just sort of body weight exercises, but things where you're going using weight to really replicate those slow eccentric control of your quads, because that's what it is. It's that constant braking forward and downhill. So all of the strength exercises you can do to maximize that's really important. And specificity on actually running hard downhill and practice running hard downhill for a technique perspective, but also for a strength perspective, and then to be able to tolerate that over long periods of time. Core work's really important, calf work, all of that, all of the muscles above and below the quads are really important. So it's a full-time job, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say
all of these things, but
it might feel a bit overwhelming if you're listening to this going, oh no, where do I start? Often one of the easiest ways is to fit this in is just take out one of your easy runs and swap that over completely and it doesn't need to be complicated, the strength work for conditioning your body. Like we said, squats are key, calves are key. Keep it super simple, but just don't think I need to add this all in. Just maybe take out a little bit of the running. Trish, you as the other thing, and Rebecca just touched on it, is to just have a little think about your technique running downhill as well, because if you are braking a lot, this will make the DOMS set in early. If you can get out on the route as well, you can just have a little look at the way you're flowing downhill. You don't need to. We've made it out that you need to blast every downhill to smash the quads. Just running the downhill easy will do its job. If you're not confident about running downhill, or you only got limited time on downhill, you can always break up the downhill as well and go, I'm going to run this a little bit faster. I'm going to relax and run this slow and recover. So you can use your training as well to sort of fast push that. Give yourself DOMS basically, and then let them recover. I hope that's helped.
I've got one on the form.
Yes, do it. You'll have some incredible Kenyan secret knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, the Kenyans. I'd be very interested to see how a Kenyan would do in a mountain race here in Snowdonia with the technical stuff. I think it would take them a while to learn. There was a Kenyan who came out to a Snowdon race and he bombed. It didn't go well at all, and they paid for his flight and everything. So the specificity there does go beyond heart and lung capacity. So but then have you seen Kenan Isibekele? He's got these thighs like massive. I think he would do really well in Dragon's Back. But I was really bad. Honestly, I was really bad at descending. And now, as everyone knows, I'm really amazing. And how I got to that point was I watched the best descenders, fell runners, and how they were doing it. And I noticed a few things they were doing differently. And one was faster steps. It does seem to be a tendency, if you're new to it or if you're a road runner like I was, to like almost leap or bound. And that really gets the DOMS, you know, when you're taking those multitudes of body weight, faster feet, keeping your feet fast. And that is a neurological thing. So what I actually did was I put music in my ears and I would run in beat to that music down the hill. And like Eddie said, I could only do it for periods of time, like reps, and I had to stop and then break it up and then get better at it over time. But really keeping your feet fast down the hill. If you see the best fell runners, certainly in this country, they've got incredibly fast cadence when they're coming down the hill.
If you haven't got a big hill as well, is you can go from side to side. So you can like almost zigzag to keep the fast feet. So you practice like turning the fast feet. You sort of imagine, I've done that. I was the same when I moved out here, Russell, and I did like my first European trail races, and I was like, "Well, guys, wait, you guys are going so fast." And it's the feet speed and the brain. Yeah, it's something, you know, you've either got it or you haven't got it, and you have to teach yourself to do it. But you definitely can teach yourself to do it. The music is a great. Get some do.
Yeah, people would always say that. Fell runners are big into that. You've got it or you don't, and that is nonsense.
No, I don't. Yeah, I agree.
Like learning a musical instrument, neural patterns, you can train them and they get bigger and stronger. And now, as I said, I'm amazing at running downhill, so it worked for me.
Works for Russell, works for anything. Trish, let us know how Lakeland 50 goes, and I hope that's helpful.
Good luck.
Good luck. You got this. Go smash the quads. Can't get out the car the next morning. That's your aim.